Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Need, and today I am joined by a veteran of the fitness industry, Andrew Barry. Andrew is someone who I became aware of through John Meadows, and I've just seen him continue to grow in terms of his scope of influence, and I was able to meet him in person recently and get him on the podcast. So Andrew, thank you very much for joining.
Thanks for having me, Paul. It's always good to talk to other like-minded people that are, just trying to build, grow, and continue to do better in the industry. So absolutely.
I appreciate that, man. That's one of the things that's always kind of drawn me to you, especially in the podcasting space with Blood, Sweat, and Gear, was that I always found you were focused very heavily on the individual and the individual's experience. How did that focus kind of come about with your own journey? Like, how did you get into coaching? Where did your philosophy develop?
Yeah, so it's funny. I say I started coaching people back in the day. Like we're talking, I did my first show in 2001, and I continued to do a couple shows for several years after that till I realized that a 190-pound, 6'2" guy is not going to do it on stage.
Probably.
Yeah, I know. It's one of those things where I turn to the side and they go, I think he's still up there,
Oh my God.
But so that's an aside story. But after some of your friends and peers see in the gym that you did a bodybuilding show, all of a sudden you're the guy that has the knowledge. You at least know how to diet, and you at least know how to suffer a little bit. So I started helping people out as early as 2002, 2003, and we didn't call it coaching back then. It was just helping your buddy in the gym, and it was as simple as you train together, or maybe you didn't train together. He would just come over in the mirror, take his clothes off, and you put him through some poses and be like, okay, maybe we should add some more cardio. Or what are you eating again? Okay, maybe we need to pull those carbs out of that meal. And that's kind of the extent of it. There was no check-ins or anything. And of course, he didn't charge anybody anything. It was just helping a peer out, But then, I was into personal training, and that's what I was doing as a career path after college for the most part, until a couple people started asking me if I could, because they'd heard I competed and stuff, and they saw that I was getting back into bodybuilding with a potential competitive run back in 2012. And they started asking me if I would help them out. And still then I wasn't charging people, which I do think, for younger coaches, if you're just trying to start out, you should not be charging people. Everyone wants to live the coaching lifestyle, make money, travel, do all that fun stuff, but you got to earn your stripes. And I think working with people for free really helped me out big time. And
I need to pause that because I really hope that people take note, because it's one thing that I've been preaching for a long time. I mean, when I started coaching, my internship was I got to coach a little bit, but I was mostly cleaning a 12,000 square foot weight room, and I was doing it for free.
Yeah.
In fact, I invested $12,000 to move to Florida from Canada for 4 months just to do that so I could learn.
I believe it. And that's something that gets lost on people, thinking that when you do something, there should always be a value added to you. And really, I think you should be thinking, what is the value added I can add to the situation? And that's only going to increase my scope of influence. It shows that you're not a selfish person. It shows that you're willing to learn. It shows you're willing to, pitch in. And if you're a keen individual, you're going to pick up so many skills along the way. Like I can't tell you, I probably never once asked John Meadows a question on X's and O's on coaching, like not once on diet, training, but I'm a keen observer. And I think, be seen but not heard is a big thing. Let me turn that off. It is a big deal. So that was my thing. Picking up from my influences, whether it was Dante Trudel, John Meadows, I don't know if you grew up in the boards back in the day.
A little bit.
Yeah, so I spent my life on the boards. I'm talking in college, there was probably 3 hours a day that I was on Intense Muscle Mayhem. Yeah, dude, I was obsessed. Muscle Mayhem, all these different sites. Just, okay, what's this thread about, diets? What's this thread about PEDs? What's this thread about, DC training, which completely revolutionized things for me back in the day. But yeah, just moving a little further on, after I was coaching a few people and continuing to do more research, I found John Meadows' website, through an article off T Nation. And I'm like, this is a guy with not stellar genetics, but, decent genetics, but I'm seeing him everywhere now. He's just working hard. He's putting out articles. He's doing a few, podcasts, a few videos. And so I just reached out to him and struck up a conversation. I was like, hey, John, I just joined your website. Really impressed by the info you're putting out. And I just want to be a part of it. If there's anything I can help you do, whether it's write articles, even manage some of your emails you don't want to answer, whatever it might be, just give me a job,
Mhm.
And I wasn't expecting much out of it because you never know. You reach out to people and they're like, okay, yeah, sure. But no, to my surprise, he reached out and he was like, okay, do you have any articles for me? And I had actually been writing just for no reason, just writing bodybuilding related articles on my thoughts and views with some pretty extensive like works cited and
Of
references.
course.
So I put some time into it, almost thinking if I present this to somebody someday, they're going to want to incorporate me into what they do. And honestly, he liked some of the articles and he's like, I'm going to run 2 of them this month if you don't mind. How would you like to be compensated? And for me, I'm like, I don't want to be compensated. I just want to be part of this mission. I want to be part of this. I want to get on this truck.
Mhm.
And he's like, well, can I coach you or how about I coach you? And I said, that would be more than an honor to me.
Wow.
And so that's how we started off. And he coached me, 2014, 2015 for those shows, like completely coach client relationship, me contributing to the website. And then after that, our relationship kind of shifted because I think John sensed that I had a knack for this stuff and I was doing really well with my coaching clients. I had a pro at that point. And then from there, it really just the relationship really grew. We started going on the road together and doing his seminars, training people together. Um, what really stuck out to me one year, I think it was when he picked up a really high level pro, and he started sending me their pictures and asking me, "What do you think you do here? What do you think? I'm thinking this, but what are you seeing? And that he probably didn't think much of it. He was just sharing something with his friend, but for me, it was like a wow moment. Like John wants my actual opinion on this. And that kind of gave me the confidence to realize that I'm definitely cut out to continue, pursuing coaching full time. So,
John is one of the people. So I had the opportunity to meet him once, and I was too nervous to go up and introduce myself.
which is funny because out of all fitness personalities or celebrities, if you want to call them that, he is the last person that would ever make you feel like you're wasting his time or that you are nobody. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
if you would have introduced yourself to him and you saw him at that same event 2 years ago, he would remember your name and be like, oh, if you told him something of note, he would have remembered that's just the kind of person he was.
Yeah, truly, truly like one of the pioneers in the industry. There's so many things that we take for granted now that he brought forward.
Oh
Like
God.
accommodating resistance in bodybuilding didn't exist before John.
So
Yeah.
true.
Taking your health seriously didn't exist before John.
Yeah.
Like all these things that are kind of front of mind.
That's really where the website came along was he wanted to be able to show bodybuilders that you could stay healthy, you could incorporate healthy food. Like he was the first guy that was really talking about using coconut oil for your foods, or
Yeah.
getting a wide variety of antioxidants, not from a pill but from actually incorporating berries and whole foods into your diets. And that's another reason why we kind of why we really got along really well was because I was in that phase of really trying to learn how to improve health while also staying on a bodybuilding diet to where, I was working with local grass-fed farmers and going to farmers markets and getting natural products versus store products. Just a lot of those kind of parallels that kind of brought us together.
One of the things that I think a lot of coaches struggle with these days is, you know, they want to learn, they want to work under somebody, but they also still want to have a brand of their own. How were you able to kind of both be a part of Mountain Dog, but also establish yourself as a coach?
Well, so it's kind of interesting. I think a lot of people think that John fed me clients, but really our relationship or our business relationship, if you want to call it that, was I just continued contributing. And John told me, any clients that I got via the website or, if people emailed him asking for me, I could keep 100% of. So there was really it wasn't like I was working under him per se, even
Okay.
though he was my guiding mentor for sure. And again, like I said, there was never like, hey, John, this is a client issue I'm having. Would you do this? All of our conversations when we were together, it would be like, it would be more like talking about theoretical stuff. Like, hey, I remember one time we were in his kitchen talking when I was visiting, and I was like, hey, do you ever do this? And I'm like, I've started to do this with people where I'll start them out with the HIIT cardio, and then we'll move into some steady state cardio afterwards as part of like an extreme fat loss thing for people that are just, really struggling and they're holding on to their fat at the last stages of a prep. And he was like, no, he's like, but that's actually a good idea, So our conversations were more like back and forth on those kinds of things. It was really, it was reassuring, there was never like, oh, that's stupid, I wouldn't do that.
It strikes me as really interesting because I don't think a lot of coaches are open to having those conversations because of ego.
Yeah.
Do you find like, how have you been able to keep, I feel like that's a stupid question because when you approach, I was going to say, how do you keep your ego in check? But when you have John Meadows, it's kind of humbling.
Here's a quick one. We were at Bev's gym training one time. We were doing a gym a supplement store opening down the road, and so we got together. And Sean Clarita came and trained with us, and I think someone else too. But anyway, and he's like on his phone. Now, keep in mind, I set up his Instagram for him, right? Like I had talked him into it, and he's like, I don't want to deal with the internet stuff. And he's like, he was like, I'm like, well, give me your email. I'll make a login for you, and give me like 20 pictures. And by the end of the day, he had, I think, like 14,000 followers, and then by the end of the week, he had like 40,000 followers, right?
Oh my
So
God.
as soon as he found out he had 40,000, he's like, maybe I should look into that. Give me my password. I want to start controlling it. But anyway, we're at Bev's one day, and he's like, man, it sucks. This is when YouTube and Instagram didn't really talk very much, or they weren't on good terms. And he's like, yeah, man, like when you're stuck at like a couple 100,000 followers, but because you've been promoting YouTube, they're kind of shadow banning you now. And I'm like, because you have a couple hundred followers, Instagram doesn't like you. And I'm like, no, John, I don't know that. So just the idea of like how down to earth he was, but also a larger than life kind of celebrity in our world,
You mentioned Dante Trudell. How did you learn from Dante? Did you have a personal relationship with him, or was it more so like just the content that he put out?
No, so I always feel like I'm pretty good at finding the right influences, just by taking in the information. And it started in high school where I started getting on the message boards, and throughout college. And like I was saying, I'd spend 2 to 3 hours a day on, if I wasn't doing training, school, or work, I was on a message board just trying to learn. And I kept on seeing Dante, Dog Crap was his moniker, right? I kept on seeing that at several message boards, and people were showing him some respect, because he was a 300 and something pound, muscular individual. So he obviously learned how to put on muscle. And I think I just broken up from a girlfriend in a relationship in 2004 or 5. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to invest in some real bodybuilding. And I hired Dante to teach me, because I always like to go to the source of, if you're reading about DC training or you're reading about mountain dog training, I want to go to the source and make sure that I'm not getting any convoluted information that's been passed down the line, like the game of telephone. Mm-hmm. And so I hired Dante, and I'll tell you what, he sent me 6 emails that were probably like 6 pages long each, if you were to print them out it was individual information. Like, it wasn't like copy and paste stuff. It was specific workouts, because you have to tell him exactly what you like for what you think the best exercises are for you. And he writes out exactly how he wants them done, like with excruciating detail. And he even like demonstrates in voice form. I don't know how you know what I'm saying? Like, yep. He would like walk you through a workout, so you're sitting there visualizing it, and then the diet and nutritional supplements and all that stuff. And I'll tell you what, gear was like the 8th thing we talked about.
Yeah. So Dante was kind of the first person I remember seeing, especially when we talk about like being on the message boards, looking at research, looking at the evidence. But one of the things that always struck me with Dante was that the evidence was mixed with critical thought. Mm-hmm. We have this research, but we also have this individual in front of us. How did, like, and I know for you, that's a big piece, because I've heard you on all of your podcasts talking about, hey, we know what should probably happen with the body, but this is what's actually happening with the body. And you try to make sense as best that you can. Where I think this comes into play is gathering feedback from the clients. So how do you, within your coaching practice, kind of blend that critical thought with evidence and then work to gather feedback from your clients to make sense of it?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, because we do have, research, we do have a body of evidence there, but I always put a caveat on that, because the research wasn't done on 200 plus pound males trying to get to 4% body fat using, you know where I'm going with that is.
Absolutely.
So there's those trends you could look at, but then in our community, we have a long-term case study going in terms of high protein diets, PEDs, cycling your training, all the different variables that we incorporate into coaching and bodybuilding in general. And I think it's probably the longest case study that's ever existed. And bringing it back to Dante for a minute, while he was doing tons of research, and if you were on his boards, where he was constantly putting up research papers and their relation to supplements and how you can not cure, but how you can help steer your health in a certain direction. But he was also, and I remember him in the original Cycles for Pennies post talking about, he would just sit there and observe people in the gym, and he would look and see, okay, what's this guy doing that's making him grow faster? What's this person doing that's not? And I think a big thing for him was junk volume. And so he took that hypothesis and then he exercised it to the most extreme form of one set to failure. You're basically doing 2 sets per body part every 10 days. Right? So when you think about that, you're like 2 working sets per, if you do the original DC of like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday plan, you're training, week 1, you're training upper body twice, week 2, you're training lower body twice. So I think just observing, and honestly, that's something I do, like within my own clients, is observing if I'm trying something different with them, is that trend working? Let's say, just for an example, I might do something like, and I've done plenty of kicks of like, let's do for people that are in extreme fat loss situations, they're really stuck. Let's do a fast, right? Let's see if fasting works for them. All right. That's the last thing people tend to think of, in my opinion. Just knowing that, okay, you're getting a 24-hour cycle without your calories. All right. And then knowing also the research shows that somewhere around 18 hours in, you're getting a metabolism boost, probably the body's brain saying, hey, idiot, get off your ass and go find me some food, I would imagine, to liberate some energy. So you're getting a metabolism boost, you're getting a day less calories. That's a strategy that I think I've used just based off of trying it and running it with a number of clients that are extreme, or I should say difficult cases.
You know what? I used to be vehemently against fasting because I was like, listen, if you're fasting, you're not growing.
Yep.
And when we're looking at performance and we're looking at all these metrics, I think you can easily get stuck at looking at things in a vacuum. But when you rather than looking at a 24-hour window, let's look at a 7-day window.
Yep.
So if we cut out a day of calories, 24 hours of calories, well, that's a huge caloric deficit that we don't necessarily need to have on the other days. So maybe we could feed up on those other days.
Bingo.
And then looking at, for me, I'm actually going to be trying it with myself because I'm working with another client and he's using it as part of more of a metabolic digestive reset that we're doing with him. He's got some elevated cholesterol that's getting quite chronic. And for me, I'm like, maybe I could get a cognitive benefit from this. So I'm going to do my fast on the day that I have the most check-ins.
I like that.
Like, I don't have to take breaks to eat. I can just fast from Saturday dinner time to Sunday dinner time, make sure that I get in a couple of meals before bed on that day, and then wake up Monday and have a normal day of eating. So I'm going to try it for myself. And again, this comes back to like, yeah, we have evidence. We also have research, but the best form of evidence, in my opinion, is the response of the individual.
Oh, 100%. I can't disagree.
And I also look at this, from the beginning, I've had amazing mentors. And one of the best lessons that I've ever been given was that coaching is as much art as it is science. So you have to understand the research and you have to understand the person. And the way that you apply the information that you're gathering is the art of coaching. And the ones who do it the best always have their own art form to it. Even when you look at like the Chris Acetos or the George Farahs, they all have the same research. They all have, different clients. They all apply it differently and they all get amazing results and have Mr. Olympias.
Yeah. Only caveat I'll say to that is that those guys are getting Ferraris every time.
Very true.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
I would be very interested to see if they could take to use an analogy, a Toyota or a Ford, and see if they could produce obviously maybe not Olympia results, but could they produce measurable results on the same scale of improvement? But, to take your point of using what we know research wise and also marrying that with the client, right? Let's
Mhm.
just a simple example for listeners is, well, we know that higher protein diets work for accumulating muscle protein, right?
Of
For
course.
accumulating muscle mass. So right off the bat, we need to have protein in there. But now applying that to a client is, okay, I could just write chicken breasts for all 5 or 6 meals, but they probably mentally want some variety. So let's get some feedback on what sources they like. And then, well, I could write the protein sources that make sense to me that I like, but
Mhm.
maybe they have a slight allergy or food aversion when they eat a certain protein source, and now it's causing digestive issues. So I think this just kind of illustrates the exact point of what you're talking about of marrying the science with the interindividuality of the client, and that's where the coaching comes for sure.
Absolutely. Like even for me, I've noticed as I've gotten older, I could hammer protein before.
Mhm.
300, 350 grams of protein a day, I'd be totally fine.
Yep.
Now I grow the best, 225 grams of protein, just
Yeah.
slightly over body weight. And
Hmm.
I hammer carbs a little bit more. My training's better. And guess what? My digestion is fantastic. So,
Yep.
I mean, I love that sort of stuff. Um, so when you're gathering feedback from your clients, what does that process look like for you? Do you send out a weekly questionnaire? Do you have a templated check-in format, or is it more so like narrative conversational? Because I know you work with a lot of clients.
Yeah, so everybody I work with, whether they're a general population person to high level, IFBB Pro, everything in between, I have a form that I follow, and it has
Okay.
all the information that I need, so that and keep in mind, like you probably have a lot of clients. When you have a lot of clients, it's hard to remember every little detail of what's going on with someone. So this form is really designed, and it might sound redundant for them, but it's designed for them to catch me up to speed to how we left things last time.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of like notes for did I have you do anything special in the last week on maybe a midweek check-in or something like that.
Hmm.
So it's very specific, supplements. I always want to know supplements. I always want to know every compound we're putting in our body with the exact doses. So when someone's like, you know, um, berberine, or they just write, test E and then some other compound, I'm like, no, no, no. I need the full doses, right?
Hmm.
Because those details matter,
Right.
So yeah, that's my process. And then I go back and forth between emailing and looms, and I'm really enjoying the looms, and my clients enjoy the looms because they can see the inflection. You
Yep.
know, if I'm just write something back like, okay, keep going. You know, hey, is he even paying attention? Does he
Hmm.
like me? Does he not like me? Versus, hey, I looked at your check-in today. You're down 2 pounds. Everything's going good. Let's just keep it up. That's a
Yeah.
little different in terms of, them being able to see my inflection. I'm not just passing them off. I'm not, just giving them you know, a 1 minute look and saying goodbye. So I think that's been very helpful. The looms are helpful. Um, I don't like receiving looms. I'll say that though,
Me
because
neither.
yeah, I mean, you know how it is when you want the information as quick as possible, so
Mhm.
then you can stew for a second and then respond back. And when you're getting 100 updates a day, you just don't have time to watch videos.
I have one client who I allow to send me looms, and the only reason I allow him to send me looms is because he's a doctor and he only tells me what I need to know. Because he's busy and I'm busy. So he's
Yeah,
like, here's what I need. This is what's going on. That's it. See you later. They're like
yeah.
3 minutes and like boom, 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 boom. I take notes as he talks, and then my check-in is like super quick.
So you
Um,
guys are on the same page then.
oh yeah. The loom videos for me. So for me in my coaching, the biggest thing that I leverage is relationships. So I am very big on creating the deepest relationship that I can with a client on, both a professional level and a personal level. I want to know what's going on in their life, but having them see my face, hear my voice, to me, that is the most impactful thing for that relationship building. It increases retention, it increases adherence, and it increases results. It's huge.
Well, it shows you
Um,
care too.
Absolutely.
You're taking the
Abs-
extra minute just to respond. And actually, I find this. I actually save time from having to type what I want to
Oh,
say,
absolutely.
but and it just serves so many positive purposes.
Yeah. Here's actually a quick tip. I also don't love voice notes
Yeah.
for clients because if I'm speaking to them and they want to revisit it next time, they have to re-listen to the voice note and like pick and choose which one it was. So an app that I use is called Whisper Flow.
I've heard
which
of it.
it allows you to record as a voice note, but the client receives it as text, and it'll format it and make sure that it makes sense, as opposed to like being a run-on sentence like iMessage.
Yeah.
That has been phenomenal, especially when I'm reviewing videos for clients. I can give better feedback on their training videos without having to type. I remember the first week I implemented it, I saved myself 2 hours.
I believe it. Yeah. I actually just end up doing like a Loom, and I send those through text message too if I need to.
Oh,
So,
okay.
but it's the same idea. You know,
Yeah.
I think I looked into the whisper notes. I'll probably take another look though.
Yeah, it worked really well. One thing that I wanted to talk to you specifically about, you competed at a very high level. Okay. You're an IFBB pro. The privilege of competing as a bodybuilder. That is something that I don't think gets spoken about enough. Bodybuilding as a privilege, something that adds to your life, something that allows you the opportunity to challenge yourself, to grow. How do you look at bodybuilding as a privilege?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, just the fact that because bodybuilding takes so much out of you.
Mhm.
It's not a regular sport like pick up baseball or pick up basketball where you get together with the team, you play your game, and then everyone goes and has beers and burgers, at the local bar afterwards.
Mhm.
So it's an all encompassing lifestyle. And I think it's a privilege because not just the getting on stage stuff, that's great. That's fun. But it's the lessons, or I should say the the kind of hierarchical like structure it gives you in your life in terms of, okay, if I know I need to do an hour cardio before I start my workday starts at 6 a.m., it means I got to get up at 4:30. If
Mhm.
I know I'm going to be doing something at the gym for an hour and a half in the afternoon, well, that means I got to bust my butt and get my work done throughout the day. So right off the bat, it teaches you organization of your
Yep.
time, right? And your most important value or most important variable in your life is your time as you get older. It's not your stuff. It's not money. It's your
Mhm.
time because, as you know, your ability to handle all the tasks and all the levels of influence that you want to, inspire and work with, it comes down to timing. So I think number one, it gives you a way to structure your life. Secondarily, just the plain discipline of it. You know what I'm saying? It's a monk-like sport in the sense that you are repeating the same task over and over again every day. And to that note, it makes almost anything else you do easy. You know,
Yeah.
like if someone says, "Oh, we have to go do this or that," you're like, "Oh, it's only a week of doing this." Like, okay, no big deal.
Mhm.
I've been bodybuilding for 30 years. Like I'm pretty good with structure. So and then I also think about all the people that can't do what we do.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And I'll tell you, in a way, it's a little selfish, but when I was prepping, I loved when my cardio got high and I loved when my food got low because it allowed me to kind of get into like this elitist type space where I'd walk into a gym and I'd just kind of look around and not like a dick, but I'd just be
Mhm.
like in my head, you guys can't do this, you
Yep.
know? So it's kind of, there might be professional athletes out there that can throw a basketball or play whatever sport they can do, which is amazing. But it's like, you can't do this 24/7 for 20 weeks in a row. That kind of gave me an elitist outlook, I guess, because I never had an attitude with people, but just definitely an elitist outlook.
So it brings, because obviously I'm prepping right now, and it brings me to this place of, it's a level of confidence in yourself that you
Yes.
can go to that hard place, that place that scares most people, and be comfortable there. I look at, especially when it comes to training, because training has always been my thing. Like, I train really fucking hard, and I'm really proud of the way that I train. I know that 3 weeks out, there's not dudes loading 10 plates on a leg press and hitting tempo sets with it.
Yeah.
Right. I know that at 3 weeks out, they're not, doing their posing practice religiously after cardio. I know that they're not going to be in a garage that's 110 degrees doing their cardio and sweating through their shirt and doing it because they actually love the process.
Hmm.
And that switch that gets flipped, this confidence in your ability to do hard things, that's just been so front of mind for me in the last year, of being able to endure
Hmm.
and allowing that hardship to fortify you as opposed to break you down. That anti-fragility to me is the most powerful mental switch that you can flip because it transfers to life.
Oh God. Yeah. It's funny you bringing this up too, because, and this is my mindset, because I'm a big history guy. I spend a lot of my time reading history, and I'm really interested in like what life was like in America, say from our founding up until about the 1900s. And I always wonder, like, and I think bodybuilding gets us as close as possible, but the conveniences and the comforts we have, 24/7 AC, light on when you want it, food always in the fridge, a roof over your heads, all these different things that we have. And I always like to try to envision myself of like, how would I be as a 1830s settler making my way out to the Midwest to, strike up my homestead or something, and having to build a property with your own hands and just a couple tools, like that kind of stuff. And where I'm going with that is I do feel like we're just kind of pussies today overall, like the majority. And and that's why I like the idea of, or that mindset that I was mentioning of, you wanted me to do 3 hours of cardio, I'll do 3 hours of cardio. You want me to eat, minus 20 carbs, I'll find a way to eat less than zero
I'll
carbs.
puke my meals up, coach.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just that mindset that I feel like we've lost as human beings, and probably especially Americans today. I do like to kind of, harness that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That does bring with it the flip side. So we have all the levels of personal growth. We have the discipline. We have the confidence that it can build. But it does bring with it a dark side. It does bring with it the folks who will compensate for a lack of effort with increasing drugs. It will bring that mindset of disordered eating behaviors. What are some things that you do within your coaching practice to maybe flesh out some red flags of these things coming up, but then also preparing people for what's to come? Because that post-show period especially is nefarious for having issues.
First, I would say, the major dark side of our sport is the rampant PED usage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's I'll be the first to explain to someone, yeah, they're definitely part of the game. But in my mind, it's like, if we're looking at a pyramid, like the food guide pyramid, it's like the third or fourth thing down. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's not the most important thing. And unfortunately, there's some people that are not with us today that would talk about how, you don't need to train hard. You don't need to eat right. You just need to take this X, Y, and Z. And I think that's a horrible message, especially because you're seeing a lot of that, those generation, the people that were in their teens in that era, maybe 8 to 10 years ago, that are now in their 23s, 25s. And the first thing they ask about is, hey, I've got this compound, this compound, this compound. How would you like to run it? And to me, it's like, well, let's get your diet in order first. Let's worry about your sleep. How's your training? We haven't even talked about that yet. So I do think, obviously, PEDs have a very important place in our sport, but they're just one pillar. And I think it gets overdone on some level. I think you mentioned the post-show phase, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that is the most crucial part of any prep, because it's really setting you up for your next prep.
Yes.
Okay. I can tell you right now, I've got people that I'm working with right now where one person is 7 weeks post-show. He is up, I think, 16 pounds, and he still has glutes. He still has obliques. He looks like we could put him on stage again in 2 weeks if we wanted to. Oh, and I should say that the only compound that we pulled, I would say about 80% of his gear out. Mm-hmm. Okay. I've got someone else that put on 40 pounds after a show within 3 weeks. And I tried to explain to him the other day, like, your off season's already shot, because you're already having a hard time eating, right? Mm-hmm. Your insulin sensitivity's nowhere near where it should be. You've already played the gear card. You got some weight to lose to get back to square one, but you don't want to be taking steps backwards when you're in the post-show phase, when you're actually trying to decrease your sympathetic stress. So, I didn't want to say this, but you kind of shot yourself in the foot here, Yeah. So those are two different scenarios. And I think it's really important to, even before the show is over, have a plan in place. Like, maybe you don't have the X's and O's from your coach in terms of, but have a plan in place of, what do I want my post show to look like? What do I want my off season to look like? And how do I want my next prep to go? Because I guarantee the way your next prep is going to go is based off what you're doing today.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. That post show period is something that I'm absolutely mentally preparing for, because after my first show, I remember 4 months after my first show, I was up 45 pounds,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
And from the moment I finished the show, I just couldn't control my nutrition. And I'm someone who I would consider to have quite a good relationship with food in general,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd never done a show. Excuse me. I'd never done a show. I wasn't prepared for the complete lack of hunger cues. My show was right before Christmas. So it was like a smorgasbord of treats and family dinners and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, I got way stronger, and I probably put on a lot of muscle during that period, but my digestion took a shit. I
Yeah.
was really unwell, and I spent probably the next 6 months trying to get back to a place where I could actually be productive again.
Yeah.
And I won't fault my coach at the time, but I definitely was unprepared, because I take ownership over my behaviors. But it also calls into question during this period of like, have you created a coach athlete relationship where your client feels comfortable telling you when they're struggling, or telling you what they're going through, especially in light of, the passing of the young athlete at the Arnold, who didn't disclose her drug use to her coach,
Yeah.
didn't disclose her drug use to anyone around her, resulting in getting an IV from the ambulance drivers, ultimately ending her life.
Yeah.
To me, that is I'm not going to put fault on the coach because he didn't know,
Yeah.
but immediately what I thought was, I better be creating an environment where my clients feel comfortable talking to me.
I'll say this. I think it talks more to the mindset of not just her in particular, but the competitor or the athlete of, in some cases, they're going to do what they're going to do. And I know in that situation, Justin had told her not to. He explicitly said, no, we're not using this compound. And no,
Right.
do not take this at the expo. But she just wanted to look a certain way,
Mm.
and that's the, that's the thing, right? It's like, we want to look a certain way, but we also want to be healthy. And at some point, you got to make sure you understand which one is going to lead to longevity. Look in a certain way. If you're just focused on that, sorry, but we've seen the results of that with some of these younger guys. They're now popping away in their young 20s to early 30s with heart attacks. I do think that some of the issues revolve around vaccination status, have something to do with that. I do.
No doubt.
But
Yeah, I'd agree.
there's no doubt in my mind that a young 20-something to early 30-something-year-old throwing 2+ grams of gear into their body 52 weeks out of the year while also maintaining, a sub 8% body fat conditioning, it's just not good. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I try to look at these opportunities I try to look at these tragedies as opportunities for us as coaches to look inwards and say, okay, again, like whether it be the coach athlete relationship or creating a safe space or educating our clients on the risks associated with their behaviors. I'm also a big believer in autonomy, and I don't tell any of my clients what to do.
Yeah. Same.
I give them the information. I give them what the recommendations I would make are, but ultimately it's their choice. And I think that's the difference between a coach and then someone who's just writing a program.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And I think it's important as coaches, we phrase things as I would do this. And actually mean it too. Like, because
Mhm.
I've never asked a client to do anything I would never do or that I haven't done. There's some new compounds on the market that I just don't have any business using. Just that they don't, like, I don't really need
No,
to use retatrutide year round.
you don't want to use like AOD 4756 2030.
I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, when sometimes people come at me with some of these things, I'm like, I got to go to Google and look up what some of them are. And,
Yeah.
and so, while I'm very open to the new stuff,
Yeah, of
in my
course.
mind, it's also like, well, I got in great shape from 2001 through 2021 with just like the basics,
Yep.
and bodybuilders have been showing up to the Olympia stage in great shape with way less than even what I had access to. So
Mhm.
at somewhere in there, it's like, it's great if there's some other tools out there that we can use to make people healthier while eliciting a certain look. But I also want to backtrack to what you said about a second ago about compounds, and I think it's very important for every coach to come up with, in their mind, or at least a list of things that they will absolutely not use with clients. Like
Oh, I agree.
where the line is, right? And for me, I'll just tell you, like DNP is one of those things. Like if someone wants to use it, I'm not even going to keep coaching you if you want to use it. And it's not that it's like, well, I just don't want that associated with me. It's like, I don't want to stand there and watch if you get hurt. I don't want to be, you know what I'm saying? I don't want, not because people could think that I told them to do it, but because I just don't want to see that. I don't want it to be a part of my business, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, that's a perfect point to make. And it's an awesome segue into the next question that I have is, whenever I've had a bodybuilding coach on the podcast, I find the conversation around ethics in bodybuilding very interesting to have, because at some point you will have your personal values challenged. So you mentioned that young athlete who wants to take a ton of drugs too early, potentially risking their health. I look at my role again within the coaching practice. I have to maintain my professionalism. So there is a line for me that I will not cross. Yes, it's my goal to say, okay, these are the things you're willing to do. And this is a conversation we have during the intake process. It's like, what are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? But there's also a conversation on my end. What am I willing to endorse? And what am I not willing to endorse? Can you think of any times or any conversations that you've had that have really challenged your ability to say, hey, I got to back off here?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a female, I think in maybe 7 years ago, she never competed before, but wanted to do bikini, and she came to me running trenbolone.
So
And
she likes to party.
yeah, like there was no, I'm going to try a little Anavar, a little Primo, a little G. It was straight to Tren, and it was like 25 milligrams a day. But she also didn't tell me this until we were 3 to 4 weeks into coaching. So you can imagine my surprise when, because she was also complaining about different side effects, and I'm like running through, and I wasn't probably as proficient in lab work as I was back, as I am today. And then when she let it fly, and I knew her boyfriend. So I'm like, is he telling her to take this? And it's funny because I caught up with him last year, and I was like, do you remember that girl you were dating X amount of years ago? And he's like, oh yeah, she was crazy. I'm like, so did you have her taking Tren while she was working with me? And he's like, what? And I'm like, she never said you did, but she was taking Tren that whole time. And I backed her down to just Anavar. I was like, I'm going to say right now, like, I think there's some situations where a female can use trenbolone in very low doses, but it's not going to be a bikini athlete. Okay. Yeah. There's just no place for Tren in the bikini world. And then the other place where I draw the line is when someone says they do really well with DNP. And for me, that's a non-starter. Like, I'm just not going to do that with somebody. I mean, this year alone at the Arnold, we saw a situation where a girl who was using it on her own, I do want to point that out. It was not, Justin did not tell her to take this. He actually showed me how he told her not to take it when she had asked. It's just one of those compounds that, one cycle of it can kill you. So anything like that, multiple diuretics, when someone says, oh, I can handle diuretics really well, I'm like, that's good for you, but that's not what we're doing, you know? And I know every coach says they're low dose diuretics. My thing is, I would not want to, I make sure that there's nothing I put in print or that I tell someone to do that I would be embarrassed by if someone posted it, like on Instagram or started on a Reddit thread or something like that. There's no cycle or peaking protocol or anything of that nature. So I think if we start there, that assume that this person's going to show it to someone else, probably their friends. Word's going to get around as you gain more of a reputation as a coach and as an influencer in the bodybuilding sphere. So make sure you understand that, like, there's implications if you have someone do something extreme. But yeah, I mean, it's really like DNP, high diuretics, and then I would say, I think there's been a shift in the last year or two on high dose cycles. So there's never been cycles that, someone said they wanted to run with me that I was like, yeah, that's a no-go, Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just because of the space I'm in with, like, blood, sweat, and gear. We're always talking about getting more out of doing less.
Right.
And just maybe, when it's kind of like an actor who gets typecasted into a certain type of role. I think coaches get typecasted into certain types of roles. Like if you're bringing multiple bikini girls to nationals and they're looking great and they're getting in shape, you might get typecasted as a mostly bikini coach.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're, let's just say juxtaposed to that, like Blue Taylor, I've never seen him work with a female, and he always brings guys in that are really big and bubbly to shows. So I do think you can get typecasted into roles on who your potential clients that are going to reach out are going to be, who they're going to be. My thing is, I want to be able to work with everybody. So,
Yeah.
which I'm happy to say I have people in every single division now. So,
That's an interesting point about getting typecast as a coach, because especially when it comes to marketing, people will say, "Oh, you need to have your ideal client."
yeah.
And while I do think that there's a lot of validity to that, and especially in your messaging, I don't think that your ideal client has to be as specific as people want it to be. When you're thinking about the content that you put out, is there a conscious effort made into curating that content for the type of person that you want to coach?
I don't think there's a conscious effort anymore because, I mean, first and foremost, I want honest people.
Mhm.
I think every relationship, it needs to be based on honesty, whether it's an interpersonal, wife spouse relationship, friendships, but definitely a client coach relationship, because I would never want a client to be doing double of what I told them, asked them to take, or basically just not following the plan. I think there needs to be a level of respect that carries honesty over. And then beyond that, just generally good people. Like I don't screen for genetics or anything like that in terms of potential clients. It's, I get their email, I read it over, I mull around about it a little bit. I look at their pictures last. I want to see what they're about and what the responses are. I'm trying to think of examples of, yeah. Really, it's really just, I want to get to know who they are, and that's kind of where I go from there.
To be completely honest, that was exactly the response that I expected, because my response to the ideal client conversation, or like, that niche that you're trying to attack, is you have to be authentically who you are,
Okay.
and your content has to be a representation of your values. And if you put out content that is aligned with who you are, you will get the clients that you want.
That's 100% true.
I think people run into the problem of they try to be somebody, or they try to portray something that isn't necessarily them. And to your point, every relationship needs to be based on honesty. So if I am some caricature of myself online, and then you talk to me in a check-in and you're like, this fucking guy isn't who he says he is,
Yeah.
that relationship is doomed from the beginning.
Yeah. I'll give you one example of where I messed up one time.
Okay.
Because this is actually kind of funny. So about, was it 2 or 3 years ago, we went to a Super Bowl party at a bar. We were invited by a friend, and he had got a bunch of people together. And, we're sitting at the group of table, and one of the gentlemen who's sitting there across from me is talking to me, and he's kind of talking to me like he knows me. And I figured, okay, maybe he just recognizes me from the shows or something like that. And we're going on and on. And then like I asked, I stupidly asked him, like, well, have you competed before? And he's like, Andrew, you prepped me. And I go, oh my God. And I took a closer look. I'm like, I'm not going to say his name. I'm like, oh my God. So, and honestly, he had shaved his head. He used to have long hair, and he completely
Okay.
shaved it, and
All
he had
right.
gotten new tattoos.
Okay.
And the bar was also so loud that you couldn't really hear each other speak, because it's Super Bowl, right?
Right.
So I didn't even hear him say his name. I was just small talk, small chat.
Yeah.
But I felt like the biggest idiot of all time, because I'm like, this guy is going to think that I like devalued our relationship, the time we spent working. And it was only one prep, but
Yep.
but still, I mean, I looked him up and I sent him a message. I'm like, dude, I am
Of
so
course.
sorry. I never do this. I am beyond embarrassed, honestly.
Mhm.
I don't want you to think that like I didn't care about our time together. But yeah, that was one of my, I would say, my bigger F ups
That's
coaching.
funny. I'm always like, probably one of my biggest compliments that I ever receive is that, like, oh man, like you're the same in person as you are online.
Yeah.
And I had a recent experience like that. Actually, I was driving to Atlanta to coach at a powerlifting meet, and I stopped in Greenville, and I stopped at Carolina Iron, and
Mhm.
Dusty was there with his wife.
Nice.
And I was like, hey man, like, I don't mean to be weird. Big fan, been following the show. love what you do. Like I've known about Dusty since he was with like Isogenics, or not, was it Isogenics?
No, it was,
Isotori.
yeah,
Isotori.
yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
So, and he was like, man, like what brings you in? And he stopped his workout to have a conversation with me, gave me his phone number
Yeah.
and said, next time you're in town, let's train.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this guy's legit.
Stand-up guy.
And he's a stand-up guy he's exactly the same person online as he is in person.
Oh, totally. 100%.
And and I can say, listen, man, you're the exact same person when we're talking that you are online, which I love.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say the biggest person, I think, because we've talked about him, is John Meadows. Like he was, because I know you'd said that you were like, oh, I want to go introduce myself and say hi to him, but like, maybe he doesn't want to. He is the biggest normal person that you'll ever like. I mean, I knew he was normal when I stayed at his house for the first time, and his wife Mary. As soon as we get in, he picked me up from the airport. She's like, John, you didn't take the trash out. He's like, oh yeah, well, yeah. It was just like so normal, a normal family lifestyle, 2 boys, but yeah, I mean, I've heard so many stories from people telling me that they went up to him at a conference, or they went up to him at the Arnold one year, and then they saw him again 2 years later, and he remembered them, remember what show they were trying to do, like details that just, I'll be honest, I don't remember details like that, but he would remember those details. Like, oh, how'd you place in that show? You were doing the Carolina something, right? Like, pretty crazy.
I love that. Let's finish up with some quick hit questions. What is the most amount of calories that you've ever fed somebody?
Oh, I think like, so, I don't count like trace proteins and trace fats and stuff. But on paper, it was like 7,800 calories.
Holy fuck. Like consistently 7,800 calories.
For at least a 3-month stretch. Yeah. Yeah. And he was eating it too. So yeah. I mean, we're talking like 1,400, 1,500 carbs on well, actually got to the point, with diets, a lot of times when someone's eating that much food, there's no training diet and non-training diet. There's just the diet,
right,
and then an intra workout. Hopefully we can fit that in. Sometimes we pull it because they're just so full throughout the day that it's not serving a purpose. It's detracting. But it was like 7,900 calories. I mean, it was a lot of food.
What has been your most proud moment as a coach?
My first pro, my wife, Rachael.
That's fucking cool, man.
That's really 17 cool. Nationals, 46 girls in that class.
That's amazing. I asked this question to all the guests. If there was a billboard on the side of the highway for everyone to read, and you could put any message you want on it, what would it be?
That's a tough one on the spot. What would the message be? It doesn't have to revolve around me.
Nope.
Okay. I gotta say, I kind of live by that mantra that no one cares, work harder. I should put an asterisk though with some small print that says like, unless you're in a really bad place, then let's get some help. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying though? Because like if you're well and you're in a good headspace, then just work harder, keep moving forward. But if you got something going on, like maybe there's a tragedy in your life that people don't know about, or you got a hardship that we're not aware of, then okay, let's deal with that and let me be there for you. So tough love, but also like, hey, if you really need a second, like, let me help you. You know what I'm saying?
I wrote, no one cares, work harder, ... kinda.
Yeah. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like, we want to have that mentality of like, let's go. But okay, if there's something really wrong, like let's fix that. Let's get you right. Yeah.
You and I are on the same page there. If there was one person that you would like to see me interview on the podcast, who would it be? But the caveat is that you have to help me get them on.
Oh, geez. Honestly, I really think because he just has such a wealth of knowledge. I gotta say, my buddy Phil Viz.
Okay.
He has got any topic he is almost academic on. Phil would be great.
I'd love to interview Phil. That'd be a great conversation, especially around like his trajectory as a coach and managing social media. I think that'd be a fantastic conversation.
Yeah.
Awesome. Andrew, I will have links to where everyone can find you in the show notes, but I do have to say, like, thank you so much for giving me your time. This was an amazing conversation with a ton of value for the audience. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Great talking to you, Paul.
been my pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.